let's talk about life after Hatch. I know if you are like me and thinking about, a few years from now, you will be excited when your student is a senior. My daughter, my oldest kid, is now a 12th grader, and looking at what she's going to do after high school. It is a bittersweet thing. I am like both incredibly sad about it some days and so excited about it others. She is clearly ready to launch, and I think would be out of my house a lot sooner than she did, but maybe that's just my daughter. But the goal of high school is not to stay in high school forever. So what's going to happen? One of the most progressive, if you will, things that we are doing at Hatch is getting rid of letter grades. Letter grades are, generally speaking, an external motivation for students. We have a lot of research in education that they can in fact get in the way of learning because they can inhibit risk-taking by students. And while lots of schools and educators believe that letter grades are not such a great idea, established schools have a really hard time getting rid of them because they are part of sort of just the structure and the way established schools work. It is one of our great privileges as a new school to be able to start right off the bat saying we are not going to have letter grades. But that does not mean we will not have assessment and we will not have a reporting structure. So what you see in front of you is a snapshot of what is called a Mastery Transcript. So at Hatch, we are contracted with an organization called the Mastery Transcript Consortium, which is over 450 schools all over the country that are looking for a better way for students to have their progress reported. Because we are part of this consortium, it gives us some benefits. One of which is the MTC itself works to educate colleges about how to handle and read these kinds of transcripts. So allow me to help you decipher what is something that looks super different probably than what your high school transcript might have looked like, which was probably just a list of the courses you took and a list of the grades you received in them. In a Mastery transcript, the student gets to have some sort of little narrative about who they are, right? They get to craft their own student profile. This is who I am, this is what I'm interested in, this is what I want to do. They also then have in the middle this giant circle thing where the colored bars represent proficiency at meeting different competencies or skills. So Hatch as a school will define what we think are the key competencies students will need to meet in order to graduate. And those will show up in terms of this circle in the middle. Notice that there is not something necessarily that says like English 11, right? Because you're not getting a grade in English 11. What you're getting is an assessment of how you have mastered skills of communication. And those skills then are listed down below. So you would imagine at the bottom of this transcript, you would see all kinds of different transferable skills and benchmarks, and the transcript then shows how far you have progressed on them. In addition, then on a Mastery transcript, you have a place for you as a student to actually provide evidence of work you have done that shows whoever is reading this thing how good you are at doing these things. So this is like your exemplar portfolio. So they don't have to like take the word of your teacher that, yeah, you got a B+ in math. You can show, look, here is evidence, direct evidence of my skills in that course. And then last but not least, what you don't see below at the bottom of this Mastery Transcript is a full list of all of the classes you have taken in high school. So they still get the class list information, but they get a whole lot more. They get a much more holistic and nuanced representation of who you are as a student. Lest you worry that the Mastery Transcript is sort of only for niche schools or alternative schools, the MTC has pulled together research that their transcript right now has been accepted at hundreds of colleges, including places like the UW, Harvard, Whitman, Caltech. And every year more colleges are coming online in terms of being able to figure out how to handle what are called alternative reporting mechanisms, because the MTC is not the only one coming out of high schools. So colleges are creating ways that they deal with this information. Okay. As part of that MTC, then, what you're doing is telling your individual learning story, right? You get to explain and demonstrate what you've learned about the world, right? Not just that you took a class called biology, but that as part of that class called biology, you can now really at a high level engage in argument from evidence, and that you can take information and craft a narrative about it. You'll explain what you've learned about yourself. Generally speaking, most Mastery transcripts have some sort of piece where you as a learner are looking at your own learning process and how you have grown and developed in terms of your approach to your learning. You'll show examples of your work, and you'll really provide and reinforce this idea that you are more than a single number. You're more than a GPA. You are more than just A's and B's on a piece of paper. A couple of things to keep in mind specifically as they relate to high school transcripts and the pandemic. As a result of the pandemic, high schools across the country did all kinds of things with their grading. Some basically stopped giving grades other than A's. Some of them said, like, we'll give A's and B's, and anything beyond that is an incomplete, right? So at this point, high school transcripts are kind of a train wreck anyway. And it's a great time to like really push back. And colleges are having to figure out what to do with these train wreck transcripts, because like there has never been a more in-your-face time where it is clear that those things are not representative of what students know, understand, and are able to do. All right. The other piece is that you know, we are in a time where there is a lot of research at the post-secondary, at the college level, looking at what is meaningful for student learning, and that high school shouldn't just be about college application preparation. So schools are more and more doing a holistic read of what high schools are doing and what high school students are accomplishing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about college counseling. Great. This is something in my past schools, like even parents of like fourth graders all want to know about college counseling and what that looks like, because independent school is an investment in your student, their learning, and their future. Does anybody know, students in particular, do you know what school this is a picture of? Somebody unmute and like put the grown-ups to shame. What is this?
Hogwarts?
It is, right? I didn't want to choose any particular school, so I'm like, oh, I know a school that kind of looks like a school but is not showing favoritism. So this is Hogwarts. Okay. At Hatch, 9th and 10th grade are about 9th and 10th grade. This is not about like all the things you should be doing to improve your resume for college. This is about like figure out who you are and who you want to be, and like get some skills and some content. Starting in your 11th grade, your junior year, that is when like formal college counseling will begin. That is the year that we as a school will hire a college counselor, and we have actually some great people who have already been advising us on this and given us some ways to strategize making this work. That person, that college counselor, will help in the following ways. They're going to meet individually with you as a student and, you know, help you figure out, like, of the gazillion colleges in the United States, like, or overseas, what are you really interested in? What do you want to do? What might be good places? The college counselor will also meet with families to ask you, like, what are your aspirations for your student? We will invite college admissions people to our campus so that you can meet with them and learn straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, what these places are like. There are, in case you didn't know, if this is your eldest student, a number of college fairs that happen in the Seattle area, so they'll keep you all informed about what's going on there, where you can like walk in and visit like a ton of schools and pick up their glossy brochures and maybe a lanyard or a pen or, you know, candy. Learn about some schools. The college counselor will help you with your college applications, students. Will work to coordinate standardized testing if it is still a thing, right? That's another thing that the pandemic has done for us, is made standardized testing a much more nuanced conversation than it has ever been in the past. And then ultimately, right, the goal of college counseling is to help each student find the places that are the best fit for you in terms of you know, community, program, what it is you're looking for, what you want to do, and really help you make this decision about what your next steps will be. All of that said, I want to be really clear that, you know, not every student will be interested in or ready to go straight from high school to college, and that is also a conversation we will have. Right? If you want a gap year, if you want some other kind of learning experience, that is all additionally part of this conversation. And then last but not least, right? Like what we do in schools is we celebrate your awesomeness. And college counselors celebrate the awesomeness that is you, the class of 2026. So I am going to leave that there because that is the very last slide of this whole thingo, and ask if anyone has any questions. You can either put them in the chat or you can just unmute. Otherwise, you get your final 5-minute break to go do whatever you need to do. And then we will all reconvene in the other Zoom room, and I will put that link in the chat for you. For sort of a more generalized Q&A and some parting words and what you can do next and all of that stuff. So you're welcome to stay if you have questions. Otherwise, I'll see you on the flip 5 minutes from now in the other room.
Jessica, I have a question.
Sure, of course.
I was wondering in terms of, I mean, I love that moving away from standardized testing is a way to approach this. But I think for us culturally, it's very, very at odds.
Mhm.
And it's almost like, how do you prepare culturally that and generationally as well? It's almost like preparing the parents more for that kind of adjustment.
Mhm.
How will the school do that to, because that's nerve-wracking for me.
For sure.
And I think of competitively in this world, and what I wanted to bring up was this notion that it's beautiful, but it's really hard. Like it lands a bit hard for our family, at least.
Mhm.
And I would say because it comes from a place of privilege,
Mhm.
and like that you'll be taken care of because there's somehow some kind of generational wealth that has been a part of your life, and therefore in your life you don't have to have those. It's just, do you understand what I'm trying to say? And I know it's, maybe you don't,
No, I
but
totally.
there's something there, right? For people come from other countries, or like my husband and myself was born here, but came out of poverty to get to where I was, and had to work really hard in school, and that's all I knew. Standardized testing was all I knew, and I did
Mhm.
well in that, right? Um, and that's what we teach and we taught our daughter. So how do you take that away?
Sure. And I think, quite honestly, this is one of the bigger challenges that is coming out of the pandemic. Um, so standardized testing in the last, 20 months has been kind of a train wreck in that students who tried to take the SAT or the ACT, in many cases got them, like those tests were just straight up canceled because of the pandemic. And then students who tried to re-register for those tests couldn't get into test sites because there were, just scads of people trying to get in. And I speak in part from experience because, as I said, my daughter's a senior this year, and um, we navigated the struggles of pandemic standardized testing. As a result of all of the challenges of that, many of the colleges have gone either completely test blind, in which they're like, we don't actually want to see your standardized test scores at all because of some of that, because they know that hit different families and different regions differentially. Or they are saying that we are test optional, which means if you have test scores and want to send them, you are welcome to, but you do not have to, because they understand those same realities. What remains to be seen in the college admissions landscape is what happens, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when hopefully we have worked through this pandemic situation. And, I don't have a crystal ball for what that will look like. It may be that we return to a standardized testing landscape that was very much the same as the one we had a couple of years ago before this, in which case part of Hatch's work will involve helping students get ready to be able to do that work as part of their college preparation. Because it is like, we can't discount the importance of those for students and families. That said, as colleges are looking at what is happening, some of them at least are seeing this as an opportunity. Like the University of California system just recently said, we're just going to stop using the ACT and the SAT, right? And they've made that decision long-term. So they haven't yet said what they're putting in place, but they're using this as an opportunity for them to really reinvent what their admissions program looks like. So I don't know as I can give you sort of like, yes, this is what it will be, because I don't think anybody knows, but we do, right, like, so I'm the first generation college grad on my mother's side of the family. And really very much want to ensure that students who might not otherwise have had traditional family access to college have that. And, you know, our commitment is to support that for all students and try to figure out in conversation with what college admissions morphs into 4 years from now, how we can best support those needs. I'm not sure if that was a satisfactory answer.
No, I think it's just going to be a hard one for, it's beautiful for kids. It's hard for our family, right? For other families, it's probably like, yeah, whatever. But for some, our family, it's just going to be like, hold on.
Mm-hmm. And I think that it is just going to be an evolving landscape, you know, and being in this position with your kiddo the age they are means that you're at this sort of weird in-between place. And it wouldn't surprise me, quite honestly, if colleges 2 years from now say, like, we just can't figure out how to make this work well, and we're going to go back and keep using the SAT and the ACT, in which case we will go, you know, we will make that happen for our students. In answer to the question about does Hatch require standardized testing, no, we do not. So no IC, no SSAT, none of that.